This episode of the Coarse Grind Podcast has been brought to you by Central Sports and Graphics Incorporated, family-owned and operated screen printing and embroidery business located in a historic storefront on Old Berwick Road in the heart of Espy. They've been doing screen printing for over 20 years. They have high-quality product at a low price. Be sure to check them out. Central Sports and Graphics Incorporated, 570-784-1212. Now, on to the show.
Hi everyone, this is Greta Rosler from Real Mom Wellness, and you are listening to my partner, my husband, food podcaster extraordinaire, Shawn Rosler of the Coarse Grind Podcast. Keep listening, keep eating, stay tuned.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Episode number 195. I don't know why my voice cracked. That's a little weird. I'm 45. I should be past that. Episode 195 of the Coarse Grind Podcast. With you as always this evening, host, creator, Shawn Rosler. How is everyone doing this fine, cooling down evening, heading into fall, into winter? Here we go again. Not on our own and traveling lots of roads I've known, so no worries. Hair rock reference aside, good to be back, good to be heard. Always glad to be bringing you the culinary backstories you never thought you needed to hear or thought you knew. And tonight, boy oh boy, do we have a winner. A winner most recently voted a winner as best cheesesteak at the Bloomsburg Fair, no less. Oh, that's a teaser. That's what they call a teaser in the biz, kids. And while I know, shame on me, I don't necessarily gravitate to the cheesesteak as my go-to. I know. Like, hate on me, that's fine. I appreciate expertise where I see it. And, well, every year it's my wife's first stop, so let's give it the attention it deserves. When you think cheesesteak, you think Philly. You think Pat's or you think Geno's. You think wit or not. Some basic entries there, right? But who wants to drive to Philly to get one of the best cheesesteaks around? And this is, I'm not saying they are by taste. I'm saying that's what people, offer up as, the measuring sticks, Pat's or Geno's. Okay, cool. I don't want to drive there. I'm not that guy. I'd rather rely on an institution that's been around for 65 years. 65 years, man! Since 1957, they've worked to make cheesesteaks, not to mention sausages and other food concessions, a popular choice in the Lehigh Valley and beyond. 5 generations and counting. In this family business rooted in a region that I've been lucky enough to learn some things about through marriage, and boy oh boy are there some things to learn about. Long story short, these folks, and certainly tonight's guest, are proud of the tradition built across the valley and beyond. Now naturally, I don't have all 5 generations here, nor do I have even more than one person, but the one who I have here is a gent I've shared a pint or two with, and certainly appreciate his taste in music, who just happens to be one of the captains in the fleet, so let's bring him on, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between. Operations veteran of the Vince's Cheesesteak legacy, fellow Oasis Mark, and Parkland High class of 98 president, Mr. Chris Cocca. What is going on, sir?
How are you, Shawn?
I am well, sir, and yourself.
I'm doing great. I love the intro. I'm excited to be here.
I really I go in the mirror and I do that, get myself pumped up mode, like Reservoir Dogs, just to kind of get myself there. So, I'm glad the enthusiasm came through, and it is, again, an absolute pleasure to have my wife's first stop every year for as long as I can remember at the Bloomsburg Fair here with us tonight. So, folks new to the program, folks with terrible short-term memories like yours truly, starters, mains, and afters. Starters, we're going to talk to tonight's guest about where they came from, the origin story, if you will. Now, obviously, Chris here is going to have to reach back a little bit. He's got to account for 5 generations. No pressure, sir. Mains, we're going to talk about where they're at presently, what it is they're doing, and what it is they hope to do in the near future. And finally, afters, a little bit more irreverent, a little bit more off the cuff, but no one has been profoundly injured in 194 episodes, so I don't see it happening here tonight. So without further ado, Mr. Chris Cocca, class president, Parkland High School, class of 98, talk to me about where and what you grew up eating.
Yeah, that's a great place to start. Man, I grew up, I was telling somebody tonight that my history in this business goes back 40 years, and I'm only 42, and they kind of were like, that's bull crap, right?
No, it's true, man. It's true.
It's true. It's true. When my earliest memory of the food business is being 3 years old, standing in the back of my dad's old Waymatic concession trailer, like the hot dog wagons you see out there with Coca-Cola branding.
Absolutely. Yep.
So we had one of those converted into the first ever Vince's Cheesesteak, concession. And actually, it was the second. But anyway, I'm standing back there, 3 years old, and I'm literally peeling slices of American cheese off of the stack and handing them to my dad, who's Vince Jr., and he's putting them on the steak and serving up the cheesesteaks. And I remember that. So growing up, I ate a lot of cheesesteaks. A lot of cheesesteaks. And then when my family opened up their double drive-through in Allentown in 1985, that place ran from 85 to 95. I started getting the pierogies, and that's become just like a staple of my life. It's pierogies, homemade or Mrs. T's. I go both ways. I love a pierogi.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with Mrs. T's. Let's go on record here. Can we agree on mic that all the purists, and listen, actually, I just had Mayor Justin Hummel of Bloomsburg and his wife Kim. They have brewskis here in Bloomsburg, and they make like house-made pierogies. I'm not saying it's going to be the same vibe, but what I'm saying is there ain't nothing wrong with Mrs. T's pierogies. A lot of frozen food we can disparage, but Mrs. T's, I think they get it.
No, Mrs. T's knows what they're doing, and it's that old thing of like, all right, it's a mass-produced product, yeah, but it's always the same quality, and it's always quality, whether you bake them, fry them, salt, whatever you do to them, they're always great. Yeah. And a little inside baseball for people is, it's much easier for people like me as a food vendor to give you Mrs. T's pierogies at a price point that you won't balk at, that I could still make money from, rather than doing it on the homemade side, because the homemade pierogies are, rightly so, super expensive because it's all handwork, it's all love, it's all passion, but they're hard to sell even though they're delicious.
Yep.
So.
And by the way, kids at home listening, he just said inside baseball, followed it up with the verb balk. So if you're paying attention and you want to be a Class A guest, go to school on Chris Cocca. That's what I'm saying. So double drive-in, 1985, then what happens?
Well, and so my dad and my grandfather, they started that in 85. That goes 85 to 95. But prior to all that, they had other experiences that kind of parallel a lot of like what we see happening, in the history of the Rust Belt. Like whether you think of Allentown, Bethlehem, Easton, even into, Bloomsburg and that whole area, like, you have your ups and your downs economically, you have your demographic changes, you have all that stuff going on, and, that always affects the family business. So for us, we start in 1957 in the walk-up basement little shop that was in a building where my grandfather lived. And back in the day, as you know, and as Billy Joel likes to remind us, Allentown, Bethlehem, it was all the factory jobs, and it was booming. And my pop, he was a Navy vet. My grandfather, we always called my grandfather Pop. He was a Navy vet, and he learned how to cook from his Italian parents and from being in the Navy, and serving all the guys on ship every day during World War II. When he comes home, he tries a couple different things, isn't quite finding what he's passionate about. Eventually, he opens up a steak sandwich shop in the bottom of his house in the walk-up basement, and he actually really makes his first success at being the guy who delivers to all the different factories up and down the Lehigh River in Allentown. And that's how he got started.
And I mean, listen, kids, if you want to see a geographical impressive view, that's a view. That's a view right there. All up and down the Lehigh. Like seeing that, like to me to this day, I've seen it, but I drive by it and like, that's really impressive, and it takes a lot. So to imagine delivering steaks up and down that drive, first of all, that had to have been a hell of a haul for him. But at the same time, like you're thinking about, tough, roughneck guys and factory gig, like who's not buying a cheesesteak? Who's not buying a steak sandwich? So,
right.
Yeah. I mean, back then cardiologists weren't exactly a popular thing. So moving on.
No.
Moving on.
Exactly. Yeah, man. So then, long story short, he has some success and he ends up opening a drive-in restaurant in the west end of town, in the suburbs, closer to where where Parkland High School was. And, that does well for a long time, but, economic pressures start to happen. McDonald's starts rolling out all of their franchises all over the place. And, all of a sudden the mom and pops are having a hard time competing. And, obviously in the early 80s, we get into recession and all that stuff. And so in the early 80s, they shut down there, and my dad and my pop really leaned into the mobile food. And so our concession trailers would go all over the state, but we would go out. These days, the furthest we typically go would be like a Bloomsburg or maybe a little bit further. We got to the York Fair, all over the place, Clarion County, Clearfield. And, they were just trying to keep things going because they had some hard times at the end of the drive-in restaurant. So they kept it going, and they really kind of planted the seed of getting our brand out there. But, it's like 1983, 84. My dad's not thinking in terms like branding. He's not thinking marketing. Yeah. He's thinking, let's make some good food and let's send some money home.
Yeah. I mean, that was about the sandwich by sandwich approach. And, obviously today, I think we're a little bit more savvy, and I want to talk more about Vince's kind of as we go along. Folks listening at home, check out Vince's Cheesesteaks on Facebook, Twitter, Insta, and the cheesesteakplace.com. But Chris Cocca, back to you, if I may, for just a hot second. So obviously you ate a lot of cheesesteaks growing up. We get it. With that said, I kind of know a little bit about the region, but maybe a lot of people don't, and I'm sure that's true. People know the Billy Joel song. Oh, you mean the Billy Joel song? No, not really, but moving on. Talk to me about childhood foods that you grew up with that maybe now you're still down kind of around in the area, right? Like you didn't.
Yeah,
really...
I'm still in the zip code.
Okay, all right. So you're not necessarily maybe missing out on the local fare, but I do know that even if you stay local, you can miss out on it. Childhood foods that just bring about waves and pangs of nostalgia. Maybe you can't recreate them. Like, what are some of those for you?
Sure, absolutely. Well, one of the things was like stuff that was homemade from my grandmother, right?
Yeah.
So, for us, it always ties back to the business, but like we would, during Fair Week, Allentown Fair Week, every year she had a traditional dish that she made, which was like an Italian peasant dish. And my Grammy wasn't Italian. My pop was Italian. Mm-hmm. My Grammy was PA Dutch. So I got both sides. And I always tell people, I'm half Italian, I'm half Dutch, and 100% carbohydrate. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Between the bacon dressing and the pasta. Like,
oh, Jesus.
So,
yes.
But she made a dish. It was just called steak and peas. That's what we called it. But it was tomato sauce with cubes of steak and peas. And she would slow cook it for like a day, and that's what we would eat all during Fair Week. And so, like, ever since she passed, when Fair Week comes, I'm like, damn, like, I miss Grammy. It's not about the food, but the food gives me that memory, that warm feeling.
Yeah, and sorry, Grammy, if you're listening, we know you are. He doesn't mean it's just about the food. He misses you first, but the food's a real close second. That's right.
And you know how taste and smell that grips you in the gut.
Oh man, when you say slow cooking for a day, like I think that's a point that people miss. Like slow cooking. Oh, you mean in my Instapot? No, I don't mean in your Instapot. I mean for a day in a Dutch oven. That's why they call it that. But moving on. So steak and peas. What else? You got another one?
Well, being in the food business, and you can appreciate this too, you're around food all day long. When you finally get to go home at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night, you're hungry. Maybe you haven't eaten all day because you don't think to eat when you're working around food half the time. And so we had a tradition after every fair, and even just when we were hanging out with Grammy and Pop, was just going to the diner, So like a lot of kids, they find the diner like in high school and they hang out, and back in our day they could smoke and all that stuff.
Exactly.
But
Hang on a minute.
As a 5-year-old,
Local reference here. Are you talking about the trivet? I couldn't wait to get that out. I'm like, I know a thing. I want to say it. There you go.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Absolutely.
It's so good.
Hot open turkey sandwich with poultry gravy on the sandwich and on the fries. Chocolate milkshake. None of that black and white bull crap.
No. Yeah. No, you're right, dude. Yeah, I forget what... I don't think it was the class reunion where I met you, but it was another night that we were in downtown Allentown, and, we're hanging out. It's late. We're like, God, we got to tie something on here. And we went to the diner, and I'm like, holy shit, this is amazing. I want more. Like, diner food is underrepresented, underspoken. Like, I feel like it doesn't get the laud it deserves.
No, I totally agree. And what's crazy now is, ever since COVID, diners have been so short-staffed, as has the whole industry. But I mean, like, I took my son, we went to Scouts the other week. We have Scouts every Monday night. It ends at 8 o'clock. It was a day off the next day for him. And I said, hey, let's get some food. Let's go to the diner. We go to the diner. We get to the trivia at 8:30. And they're like, oh, we close at 9 on Mondays. I'm like, what? So that whole 24-hour diner culture, that's in peril. Like, and that bums me out.
Yeah, and I think it's something that'll come back through, but it's hard, and that's a whole other industry topic. Hey, maybe in the wake of COVID recovery, I can have you back on a panel, because I'm sure staffing a food truck isn't exactly easy either. So
it's not. It's a big challenge, and our customers have been really understanding about that. We do the best we can, and we've got a good crew, but you have to be smart, you have to be careful, and then people have to. It's been tough all the way around.
Well, I mean, you guys are hauling cookies in that truck, man. Like, the speed with which you put them out is remarkable. Talk to me, Chris. Obviously you're mentioning a lot of family, and I think that's awesome. If you had to name one person as your culinary influence growing up, who would it be and why?
Oh, yeah, great question. I would definitely be my dad. So, my grandfather, he learned, like I say, from my great-grandparents. He learned in the Navy. But my dad learned from my pop, but then he also went to culinary school, which I didn't. My dad's a graduate of CIA. Not a lot of people know that. And he was top of his class, actually. Nice. And so, the vision I think that my grandfather had for my dad's life was, all right, I came this far with it. Now you go and get the real education and the real training, and you come back and we go forward from there. And so I learned so much from my dad about the food business, about cooking. And my dad, he has this degree from CIA, but he's just as happy cooking batch dinners for the church, feeding up a couple hundred people. You know what I mean? Like, so I've learned both sides of it. We can do the handwork and the fancy and all that other stuff, and we can make it look great for Insta and everything else, but we can also feed a lot of people at once, and it tastes good, and it's filling for their bodies and their spirits. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, and I know I have a pretty big student listening from CIA Hyde Park. Hi, kids. How's it going? Here's what I will repeat to you that I've said before. Stop with the pretense. It's not necessary. If you make something comfortable and warm and good, think about the scene in Ratatouille. I hate to reference a film, but I will tell you something. When the food critic takes that bite and sees that scene in the doorway when he's a child coming home and smelling in his kitchen, that is what everybody, I don't care how many stars you have, I don't care. That's what everybody wants at the end of the day. That's what everybody wants as their last meal. Like, fight me. I will die on this hill. That's what people want. So whether or not you go to CIA, listen, I've known some absolute bums and gems from CIA, and the gems are the ones that are able to say, what makes you comfortable? Not, can I use tweezers on microgreens? I'm just saying. Not that you're putting microgreens on the cheesesteak. I'm going to put my soapbox aside for a minute. So Chris, you are currently, like, what is your engagement with Vince's? Is it full-time? Is it part-time? How is it you're plugged in there?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think it's full-time by default and has been for 42 years, But in terms of my professional life and my work day, I spend a lot of my time in the business, on sort of what I'll call the back end, not back of the house, but with that kind of thing. I'm helping with bookings. I do all the marketing. I do all the books. We have an accountant because, like, you have to have an accountant, but I work with all that. I kind of help just all the stuff that's not, all right, physically in the truck today, pretty much goes through me. And I have help, like I say, we have professionals and everything else, but I'm the starting point for all that. My mom and my dad, they wrap up the bookings. I'm often the starting point for bookings. So all the administrative stuff. But then on top of that, I'm on the truck a good amount. I'm not on the truck as much as Vince is. And Vince loves being on the truck. My dad that's where he wants to be. And that's one of the reasons why I sometimes hang back and I'm in the office. And by the office, I mean, like, my desk upstairs in my house.
Exactly. No, totally. So let me ask you a follow-up question to that. Was that always the vision, or was there a moment where you were like, oh man, I'm doing this. Like, did you have an alternate path at any point?
Yeah, well, you know what's really funny and ironic, I guess, is like my dad and my grandfather both, like, they didn't really want me to be involved in the business as an adult because they felt like, you know, they were working so hard physically. They thought like my life would be easier if I was like a good boy and went to college and all that other stuff. You know, like in The Godfather, like look at you, a nice college boy. What are you gonna do?
Look at you. Yeah, yep.
Right?
Yep.
And I swear that's probably why they didn't name me Vince, because my papa's Vince, my dad was Vince. I'm not, right? But, you know, so yeah, I mean, I went to college, I went to graduate school, I have 2 master's degrees that are not in anything culinary, you know, but I guess, you know, I just always was very proud of what we did as a family, and I always felt like we had a really good thing, and there had to be a way to get it in more people's hands. And so, you know, one day, honest to God, we were doing a job at a youth sports tournament, and somebody rolled up with one of those Kona trucks. Kona, was like a snow cone truck, and it was a food truck. And my dad, because you know we're in Allentown, we're not in Miami, we're not in LA, like so food truck culture hadn't really come to Allentown at this point. And I said, Dad, look at that, look what they can do. They can roll in, and they can close the windows when they're done, and they can roll out. No hitching up the trailer, none of this other stuff. And that planted the seed in my dad's head, like, let's get food trucks. And I couldn't believe it because he was already like in his late 50s and he was ready for a new adventure in this business. And so he and I just said, you know what, we're going to go for it together. And we have a good crew with us. And so I think it kind of was opportunity. It was like an aha moment. And it was like, I think putting this on the road in this way is going to get it into a lot of people's hands. And that's thankfully what's been happening.
Beautiful. Yeah, because it's so funny. You mentioned the advent of the food truck and Coarse Grind. Oh God, how many years is it now? We're not 10 years in, but we're really close to 10 years at this point. And one of the early episodes was with Lisa Fernandez, Sweet Chili NYC. One of the first like fully licensed food trucks. I'm probably going to misquote that, you know. So this is going about 10 years back, and it's like, wow, that is revolutionary. And back then, as I'm talking to her, she had been on Top Chef and unplugged from that and started doing the food truck gig. And I'm like, that's really interesting. Then all of a sudden, you know, and I'm not trying to be the hipster that's like, oh, I knew about it before it was cool, bro. But I kind of am, because I'm like, dude, food trucks are going to be, because brick and mortar is expensive. Brick and mortar is permanent. Brick and mortar comes with a lot of real estate issues that you don't get with said food truck. Now, Keith Breedlove, and I'll send you the link to his episode. He was the State Fair Chef of California a couple years back, and he had the Culinarity Cruiser. And we talked about, you know, all the like automotive concerns. So of course there's some things there, but it just seems like such a brilliant idea. And man, if we want to talk about food services that kind of like pulled us out of the dredges in COVID, in the pandemic, you got to look at your food trucks, man, because they saved everybody's asses collectively.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, we had some of our biggest business ever was during the pandemic because people were just so appreciative on the customer side that they didn't have to cook for themselves and they could just get out and have a little taste of something different and normal. You know what I mean?
Yep. And restaurants went to that model. Restaurants locally here in Bloomsburg, as far and wide as I can see, went to that model. Some went to the mercantile model where, hey, we're going to sell our ingredients in these little boxes. You can make your stuff at home. But I'm telling you, the food truck model, boy, oh boy. I mean, you were ahead of the curve. Vince was ahead of the curve. Vince, if you're listening, thank you. Well done. And what a great reason to turn into it. So now, Chris Cocca, let's talk about, you know, Vince's current landscape. Like, how's it going? What are you doing coming out of COVID? Give me the high level overview of where Vince's is at right now.
So right now we're blessed with, I think, really more opportunity than we can even handle at the moment. We have 2 food trucks, but our big challenge right now would be to have both food trucks fully staffed the way we want them staffed to run them every day of the week, because thankfully we could probably fill that calendar that way.
That's amazing.
But right now we're mostly running 1 truck at a time, sometimes both. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, coming out of COVID, we're in a stronger position than we've probably ever been, because we had the ability to plug through for these last 2-3 years. Yep. And one of the most rewarding things we're doing now, this has been more of a recent thing, is, we've been partnering with nonprofits, with church groups, with animal shelters, with Boy Scout groups, whoever the case, fire companies. And, we have a program where we say, look, we'll come to your place, we'll promote it, you promote it. Every sandwich we sell, you get $1. You have to do zero work. We'll do all the work. You help us promote, and we'll partner up together. That model has been amazing for us because it really engages the wider community. People know it goes to good causes, and they enjoy not having to cook and getting something tasty to eat. So,
unreal.
That's sort of like a very, what's the word I want? Like a very folk response, because it's really about community. But I think
I get it. It's a very altruistic response for sure. I mean, like what you're doing with that, and again, it's funny. They say the worst of times brings out the best in people, and I've heard more to that end. And to know that you're like you're taking the blessings, the winnings that you're given, and not keeping them to yourself, isn't that what it's all about? Especially in this industry, man. Because you can sit there on your stars, and you can whatever. But this is what speaks to me more. If you're in the food industry, at the end of the day, your ultimate goal is to make someone feel good and feel full. That has nothing to do with dollars and cents, right? So that's where you guys are coming in right now. That's amazing.
Yeah, and people have really responded, and I'm really grateful for that. And so we keep a big part of our schedule open for those kind of things, and then we have our our regular, we have a lot of corporate clients that we go to, and then we continue to do private catering, and we continue to sometimes just set up at somebody's permanent business and have partnerships with them. And so I think one of the most rewarding things is when you post, I'm going to be in Berwick this week, and then somebody says, "When are you coming to Shamokin?"
Exactly. But see, right there, that's okay, well, we know where we're going next.
Yeah, exactly.
They're drawing the map for you. It's if you think of sales, like car sales or anything like that, God damn, they're probably sitting inside waiting for the next poor mark to come through the door and try to park a 76 Lincoln on them, and get it out the door and get it sold, right? Yeah. You're getting those leads given to you based on your brand identity. Again, that's the thing your Pop didn't have, but now, sorry, your dad, I forgot Pop was, the generation before. He didn't have that knowledge, but we here kind of in the now, we're a little smarter marks. We kind of get it a little more. It's okay, cool. Our brand identity survived a virtual pandemic, not a virtual pandemic, a literal pandemic. So clearly it's going to draw people. It's going to draw. So you can just kind of connect the dots as you go. So obviously the current state of Vince is phenomenal, amazing, and well-deserved across the board. Much love to the entire family on that. As an insider, sir, I consider myself an outsider insider, but you're an insider. I like to look at trends. I love looking at trends in the industry. And I know there's always what's going to be the next big thing. We don't necessarily even have to say generally the next big thing in food. We can say, the next big thing in food trucks or maybe something like that. But I'll ask you and I'll leave it open for you. What's going to be the next big thing that we, the lay people, the consumers should be looking for in the food industry, if not the food truck industry?
Right. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is something that has the potential to be good for some classes of operators, but not good for our workforce and not good for people like me who have a family business that's mobile, is the automation stuff. That's, to me, that's going to come in very hard and very fast, especially in the chains. And so I worry about that because, we struggle to get people in our kitchens or on our trucks and stuff like that, but we also know that there's thousands and thousands of kids who have that passion that want to be in those spots. And what does it mean if we put that in the hands of a conveyor belt? You know what I mean?
Well, a conveyor belt and again, this is not to badmouth the Golden Arches Empire, but I do hate this move. I loathe this move. I get angry when I think about this. The touch screens in the lobby of the McDonald's.
Yeah.
I can't handle it. I really can't. It makes me mad.
It reminds me of that's like in the 30s and 40s, man, those like automated lunch machines. You ever see those pictures?
Yep. Drop a dime in, open the door, you get your sandwich. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I understand why back then that seemed revolutionary and stuff, but now, you know, when you take the human component out of food, I mean, that's just a mechanical process, and it's, you know, you're missing so much of what it really should be about.
And I mean, to be fair, people, if you're in McDonald's, you're already in a mechanical process. Go to Vince's Cheesesteak, find a food truck, you know,
Fair enough. Well,
eat it.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I would say too is I think we're gonna, you know, I think a lot about, you know, what does it mean to be able to try to pay a living wage and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And one of the things I worry about is eventually, if only the mega chains can afford to pay the living wages, then people like us we're gonna lose not only our livelihood, but we're gonna start losing our culture, our culinary culture. We have to be able to get support from the community so that we can hit our margins, but also pay our people what they deserve and what they're worth. Otherwise, It's all going to be corporate. It's all going to be golden arches, and there's not going to be anything in between.
Exactly, and that's not happening on Chris's watch or my watch, so back off.
That's right.
So, obviously, that's going to be the next big thing. What's something that's a trend right now, Chris? And I know you, above so many other people that I know, are just not a hateful person. I know you're a man of God. I know you're a very peaceful person, but I got to ask you, just let a little darkness in for a second. What trend or that you see do you just want to see just burn, like go away? Come on.
Well, one thing I hate is every fast food chain trying to do their variation of cheesesteak, and I see more and more.
There you
more
go.
Everywhere I look.
Ooh, okay,
I hate that.
All right.
Not only is it inauthentic, right? But how can I possibly compete with, you know, all the scale that they can put it to work for them when it comes to how cheap can they go? And you know, I think about this a lot. Like I've been to McDonald's, I've been to Arby's, and I've had terrible experiences, and yet my ass goes back there sometimes. And why do I do that?
Dude,
like,
do you know why? Did you ever have an ex-girlfriend? Of course you did. I'm going to let you connect the dots on the rest of that story. You know why you keep going back. So anyway, all right. So the commercial cheesesteak, I would agree. And like Arby's, shame on you. Stop it. Nothing you're making is like a cheesesteak. Go home.
Right.
Go home, you're drunk, which is usually how I am if I'm going to Arby's anyway. So there you go. All right. So here's that 5-year view, Chris. What is Vince's doing in 5 years? Talk to me about that.
I think what I'd love to see for us is to be able to fully finish rebounding from the labor side of the current, you know, economic situation, and be able to fully staff 2 or 3 trucks at a time, so that we can do the fundraisers for the fire companies the same day that we're doing somebody's, 16th birthday party, the same day that we're doing somebody else's wedding, and just to be able to be out there with more skin in the game and more visibility. Because we have the demand. The hard part for us is the logistics. And so my hope is that things in the world settle the hell down, you know, that our supply chains really get back online in better ways, that inflation starts to come under control, that we don't have any kind of crazy war, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that we can get back to making people happy with the things that make us happy, you know?
Seems simple enough, you know, the whole war thing. Let's calm down overseas and
it's amazing. People don't always understand everything that happens, you know, even 5, 6, 7,000 miles away, one way or another, can impact the price of your cheesesteak at the Bloomsburg Fair. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that is. Oh boy, that's a whole other topic about how people don't get it. What do you mean beef is more expensive now? Stop it. Just walk away, please, for the love of God. But you're right, and no, I mean, I think, you know, as a controlled conservative goal, I mean, I think that's solid. And if you can start doing that, man, then I think the doors start opening right back up.
Yeah, I think so. And I should throw in there, I'm very grateful that we didn't have any people complaining to us about higher prices this year. I think people get it. But, you know, it is something I worry about, not just as a professional, but just in my life as a consumer. I mean, and you and I both have 3 kids. Wow. You know, just the way things have changed, and you hope to God that, you know, the things that we care about in terms of food and business and making those connections aren't going to be things that get too out of reach for most people to sit down and enjoy every now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, we've already seen it, but there again, to turn the light back on Vince's Cheesesteak and the work that they're doing, you know, they're going to these churches, they're going to these not-for-profits, and they're helping out. So again, you know, don't build a higher wall. That pun was intended, but build a longer table. That's always been my stance. So let's go into afters, Chris. Let's go into the Terradome, if you will. Put your helmet on, put your knee pads on, put your elbow pads on, and be prepared. You and I are standing in the kitchen. You can pick if it's the food truck or your kitchen, my kitchen, and we're cooking, and you've got DJ control of the music. Now, here is one that I can almost bet I know what the answer to this is. What are we listening to and why?
You and I are thrown down together. We're going to listen to Definitely Maybe from start to end. The whole album.
Beautiful. Ah! You and I are gonna live forever.
Speaking of YouTube and podcasts, do you ever watch Rick Beato, the musician?
No.
He did a whole thing about what makes Oasis great, and I was like, finally, someone who's American besides me and Shawn Rosler appreciating it.
Besides everything, like what did he cite? I mean, let's just not even.
So he went through what he thought some of their top songs were, and he explained, he's sort of like in musical analytic terms, why they're so good and everything.
Yeah.
And it was funny because he talked about Don't Look Back in Anger, he talked about Wonderwall, and then he's like, but this next one, he's like, it's really under the radar for most people, but I freaking love it. And I said to myself, it's going to be Slide Away. And it was Slide Away because that song kills me.
I would agree. I would throw Live Forever in there. I would throw,
Yep.
Oh, shit. Of course, now I'm on a hot mic, and I'm like, no, I don't know who Oasis is. But yeah, definitely Don't Look Back in Anger is, like, forever, like, the be-all, end-all. So yeah, we would literally binge listen to Oasis, and when people came in and said, are you still listening to them? We would turn and in stereo go, yes, and go back to what we're doing.
Absolutely.
Chris Cocca, I'm gonna... What's that?
The song about making lasagna, right? We have to play that one in the kitchen.
Well, of course, yes. There's no question to be had there. Sir, I'm gonna take you on a helicopter to a deserted island. I'm gonna strand you there, and you can only bring 3 foods or food type items with you. Inexhaustible supplies through the power of imagination, but only 3. What would they be, and why?
My first response is pizza.
Love it.
Because it's pizza, right?
Exactly.
And no matter what happens, I could eat pizza every day. I just could.
Exactly. I get it. I get it. I feel it.
Yeah, definitely pizza. This is going to sound so stupid, but it's something I've recently discovered. Have you ever had this sparkling water called Spindrift?
Yes, I love Spindrift, dude.
I have become addicted to the lime Spindrift.
I love Spindrift. Yes, yes.
My pizza and my lime Spindrift, only 4 calories per can.
It's amazing.
All natural, nothing, no sugar added. A little bit, a hit of lime.
A little bit of natural juice in there. That's where you see the 4 calories versus just straight up seltzer. We get it.
Exactly.
I think there's something in the water in Parkland because Greta is like a hardcore seltzer nut. So
there you go.
There you go. So pizza, Spindrift, and what? I swear, if you don't say the one thing, I'm going to lose my mind. Go ahead.
I'm just gonna say steak and peas.
Oh, okay. Nice spin. Nice spin. I thought, if he doesn't say cheesesteaks, I'm going to hit stop and I'm going to throw the episode out. However, now that I know the history of steak and peas with you, respect.
And also, I've eaten more than my share and your share of cheesesteaks in my life. So.
Fair enough, dude.
I still love them. I still love them. You're still top 3 for me. But
with that said, yeah, exactly. Melanie Denea is an incredible photographer, journalist, and she did 2 books. She did My Last Supper and The Next Course. And in each book, there's 50 world-class chefs, 1 picture, 1 set of 5 questions. And I drew, that almost 10 years ago, I drew inspiration from her for the format of this show. Just that in that it's a very templated approach, but her approach was to the question of, your ticket's getting punched tomorrow. What's your last supper? So, Chris, I ask you, if your ticket's getting punched tomorrow, what are you eating? What are you drinking? Who's there? What music? Paint the scenes for me.
Yeah. All right. So I'll start with the music. It's going to be a playlist. It's going to be Oasis. It's going to be Bruce Springsteen.
Okay.
It's going to be Tom Petty.
Mm-hmm.
Who's there? Man. Well, I guess my family's there. Mike Schmidt is there.
Mike Schmidt. Hell yeah, Mike Schmidt. Go Philly.
And, yeah, absolutely. I'm eating a Vince's cheesesteak. I'm eating Mrs. T's pierogies. I'm eating hot wings from a little bar in Allentown that doesn't exist anymore.
Wait, was that the Irish bar?
Yeah. It used to be 10-cent wings. When we were in our early 20s, it was 10-cent wings. People still thought wings were garbage.
PJ Wellahans.
Yes. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, no. PJ Wellahans is still there. They're very good.
Okay.
But this was called JP O'Malley's.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And it's now like like more of an upscale, like little bistro. But yeah, that was back when oh my God, 10-cent wings. We would eat like 60 of them. And now I'm lucky if I get down 15, but.
Yeah.
And I'm drinking a chocolate milkshake from the Trivet from like circa 1990.
Hell yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's it. I mean, that's kind of who I am. Like, I like fancier things and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, I like what makes me feel good, Yeah.
At the end of the day, that is all that matters. And finally, Chris Cocca, to you, sir, operations guy and just all around good dude, I got to ask you the hardest question, the last question, the simplest question, all at the same time. What is food to you in a single word?
Love.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love the fact that there was no hesitation. Out it came. That's it. That's what you want, man. That's what you want on that answer. Love it is. And love clearly has driven 5 generations, 65 years of Vince's Cheesesteaks. And I am so glad we had the chance to share a mic tonight because your story is absolutely amazing. And I can't wait to do it again soon. Maybe live on site. I've got a travel bag. I do live broadcasts.
I can get you behind the grill. We can show you how we do it.
Let's go, baby.
We have a lot of fun with it.
My knives are still sharp, son. My back is sore, but my knives are sharp. So we're always in business. Chris Cocca of Vince's Cheesesteaks, thecheesesteakplace.com. Look for them on the Facebook, on the Twitter, and on the Instagram. Again, Chris, I cannot thank you enough. Thank you so much for being here tonight, buddy.
Hey, thank you for having me. This was a blast. Give my best to your fam. And thank you for giving us a little bit of an opportunity to, get the word out and to reconnect ourselves. I really
Absolutely. Absolute joy. Absolute joy. Thank you again, buddy. Our producer, as always, this evening has been Johnny Leland Robinson, a.k.a. the Reverend Johnny Lamoria. Be sure to check out all his libertarian pirate party and anarchic happenings in the 18431. Our next episode is going to be number 196. Who knows whose it's going to be? Because I don't at this point. But who cares? It's going to be a blast. Stay Are you passing through central Pennsylvania and looking for one of the best dining experiences and craft brew menus around? Look no further. Turkey Hill Brewing Company and 991 Central Road in Bloomsburg, PA has everything you could ask for and then some. Service, food, beer together. Unbelievable. Be sure to check them out. Call them today for reservations. 570-387-8422. Call today.